Greetings, Night Hunters, Alizonia here. Today I'll be doing my first ever tier list video, and I thought what better first tier list to do than ranking the moveset of the Belmonts. No one's ever really done that to my knowledge. There's always been Belmont matchup charts or just the characters in general, like who's high tier or low tier, etc. I thought it would be interesting to do the Belmonts moveset in terms of how they perform against a character, how well they work in combination with the other moves, as well as if the purpose of that move is actually utilized well, like if the move works how it's supposed to and how it's designed to work. That's basically the only thing. In terms of the exceptions, there's no get up attack or anything. I feel like that's not really a move to really use, so that's like the only move I could think of that's not on this list. Otherwise, with no further ado, let's get to ranking. Okay, so starting off this list, let's start with the easiest one to probably rank out of the entire moveset, Jab. This move sucks. So, why exactly does Belmont's jab suck? Well, first off, you can't even do a regular, rapid jab without hitting the opponent, and the range for jab is fucking pathetic. This range is awful. In terms of combo potential, your only option is a neutral air drag down, and even then, up B's your better option. Jab also doesn't kill even in the late 100%, like even at 200 it probably doesn't even kill most characters. The only somewhat niche use this move has is being a jab reset from down tilt 1, and even then you need your opponent to not only be close to you but also do a punishable option where down tilt can punish to lead into that situation if they don't tech. Also, you would need to most likely read after it to even get the kill. Otherwise, yeah, jab doesn't really cut it as a really good move. This move is easily, in my opinion, the worst of the Belmont's legitimate moves. Now, you may have noticed I said legitimate moves. That's because next to easy F tier, Whip Dangle. Now, to be fair, Whip Dangle is more of an Easter egg more than an actual move, but compared to the original iteration from Castlevania 4, yeah, this move is fucking dog shit. Has little to no consistency or priority, and while yeah, I've gotten a setup into it, not to flex, except I totally do, this move really should only be used when you really want to disrespect your opponent. Nothing else, nothing more. I should also mention that in the original Castlevania 4, the hitbox was active when holding the whip. Not that it would make that much of a difference, but just thought I'd point it out. Okay, so those were two negative starts to the video, so let's go a little bit more on the positive side and talk about the other sort of oddball move besides jab, which is dash attack. Dash attack is a pretty interesting case because this move is both really good and really bad at the same time. There's a lot of good things about the move, and if you use it right, it's actually pretty damn good, but unfortunately things like its hitbox and inconsistencies unfortunately mean that I have to knock it down a tier I would originally put it at. Let's start with the positives. First of all, it's an okay approaching option. I use it a decent amount because honestly, the move's hitbox, while inconsistent, which we'll get to in a second, is still generous. The move is also really good at catching landings, especially against characters who like to use airborne approaches, such as the Spaceys, for example. Dash attack's hitbox covers a decent amount both above and below Richter's body, so it's really good for catching landings against characters who like aerial approaches, and in terms of ledge hangs, if you can't forward smash, it's really good at catching those as well, such as say Cave Rule, Ganon, or Ridley. Unfortunately, as you can see, the attack flickers. Because of this, there are inconsistencies where the character may fall out of the move without really any fault of your own or the opponent's, or you might just get punished for landing the move as well. With that said, dash attack was one of the various moves that I had a bit of a difficulty of where I wanted to put it. Most of the moves that gave me that sort of challenge were usually moves that belonged in the middle tiers. With that said, as much as I wanted to say maybe put dash attack in B because of its uses, due to the inconsistencies and somewhat punishability of the move if you happen to whiff it, I think this move belongs in C for just being somewhat of a very 50-50 move, and I think out of all the moves the Belmonts have, this is the most 50-50 one in terms of, oh, will it actually be useful in this situation, or am I going to get punished because either I did it incorrectly, or because the move just unfortunately fucks me up because of inconsistencies. Alright, let's talk about a move that I actually think is pretty decent, and is actually somewhat high tier. This should come to no surprise to most Belmont players, but that move is going to be forward smash. I don't think it's really a hot take to say that this is the best of the three smash attacks. I mean, it has really good range, it kills, you can angle it. In neutral, yeah, you don't really want to be using it unless you have a holy water, so that way they're actually immobilized so you can actually land a hit more. The main purpose of forward smash is to kill with it at ledge, and in forward smash's case, it's going to be neutral getup or roll. As such, with the combination of moves such as holy water and axe, this move is fantastic and is definitely one of the best kill moves the Belmonts have. Forward smash is also really good at punishing ledge hangs. While it doesn't work on a majority cast unfortunately is unable to really get away with stalling like that, which is fortunate for us at least. It's also really good at 2-framing, although this is something I need to work on personally, but yeah, you can 2-frame a lot of recoveries because of the way the move is disjointed and angled. In terms of negatives, I would say it being frame 24 and also having its animation and hitbox not necessarily match, which goes for a lot of the whip moves, is definitely at fault. But this move is a lot better than most of the other moves that have this issue, so I think this move, honestly, if I had to say, deserves to be an A tier. I can maybe see an argument for it being a little lower, maybe at B tier, but this move is really fantastic and is considered one of the more iconic moves to kill it for a reason. Okay, so now that we actually finished with forward smash, I think I actually want to tackle up smash next. This is going to sound really stupid to most Belmont players, but just hear me out for a second. I think this move is high mid tier. Now of course, on its own, this move is not very good. In fact, it's probably one of the worst up smashes in the game. It's very narrow, has a lot of blind spots and punishability, and can't even hit opponents on the ground or next to Belmonts. However, that's not the way the move is designed to be used. The move is meant to be used during certain combos, or more particularly, during setups to actually kill. This is not just a move you use in neutral or anything. This is supposed to be a kill move, and as a kill move, it functions very well. There are numerous setups I could go over in very great detail on why it makes up smash, in my personal opinion, my favorite move to kill with Belmonts in the entire game. But the thing is, with that aside, yeah, this move is designed well, and it even got buffed not too long ago during the 9 point whatever the fuck. So yeah, this move I think actually deserves to be a semi-high tier move. Now, as for the placement, I wouldn't say this move deserves to be A tier like forward smash. I still think forward smash is a much better move because it's much more consistent to get, admittedly, even if setups themselves are what up smash is good for. I would say this move belongs in B tier. It's not like a 50-50 type shit like dash attack, but this move is not amazing like forward smash, so I think B tier is honestly appropriate. This is probably one of the few moves I think Belmonts will definitely disagree with, but you know what, like I said, I'm designing this based off of how the move is designed, and if it functions well, and forward smash functions perfectly fine. As for our final smash attack, down smash, I think this one honestly is going to go in C tier. It's pretty obvious because, let's face it, compared to the other smash attacks, down smash doesn't kill like up smash does, and while it's faster than forward smash and good for catching rolls, it doesn't really kill as well as either of those two smash attacks. And because it doesn't have as much range as forward smash, I think this move is passable, but nothing like amazing, but if used right, can be pretty helpful. Okay, so are there any moves of the Belmonts that aren't just passable? They aren't just like mid or bad or outright awful. Is there any of the moves that are actually so important in the Belmonts kits that they're actually really amazing? There is. And that, of course, being the absolutely lovely forward and back air. Yeah, 2 for 1 right now. Forward and back air have really good range. They can be angled in multiple directions, and they're really good for outright spacing, which is what you want to be really doing with Simon or Richter. Out of all the normals that the Belmonts have, forward and back air are the ones you're going to be seeing Belmont players use the most because it pretty much does everything we need it to. It's great in neutral, it's great for combos, it's great for setups. Not to mention that this move is also basically our main way of recovery. Because of how much range you have when tethering to the stage, this move is actually pretty good for that as well. It does have some flaws when trying to tether the stage, such as getting gimped or, say, not being able to tether because the opponent's in the way, but otherwise, this move is a great recovery as well, which is also a bonus. It's our main way of survivability. Also add in the fact that if you tether stall and add invincibility frames depending on how long you're off stage, you could actually avoid a lot of situations at ledge because you get more time to actually think of an option to do, which could help you survive as well. I think the main reason that I think these moves are so great is because you can angle them in multiple directions. Being able to do it in multiple directions really helps, and it gives a character so much spacing utilization that you would never really see from any other type of ranged character, as most projectiles would just go either up or left or right. But being able to go like upwards left, downwards left, upwards right, downwards right. It really helps because you could just completely sweat out your opponent constantly, and they can't really do much about it, and it's hard for them to get in. And we don't want our opponent to get in when we're playing Simon or Richter. We want to keep a distance while still being somewhat aggressive so we could do combos and stuff, and forward and back air are designed so well to do that. While yes, there is the animation issue I mentioned with forward smash, I'm going to mention it only one more time because it'd be redundant too with all the other moves. But yeah, it's such a minor thing in the grand scheme of things because most of the time you're going to be hitting your opponent when you're landing this move. And when you do, your opponent's going to have a very frustrating time getting in. With that said, I think I want to make forward and back air my first S tier rank moves. They won't be the last, but the thing is, there has to be, I feel like, at least one S tier, and I think if any of the normals deserve to be in it, I think forward and back air are like easy candidates. I can't see any argument with it, honestly. If there is, though, obviously let me know. I would love to spark some conversation with you guys. On the subject of aerials, let's tackle up air, because this aerial has actually gotten a lot of interesting labbing from other Belmonts, and myself included. I think this move is really solid despite not being as non-linear as forward or back air. Up air's main purpose is usually to attack an opponent that's like directly above Simon or Richter. Usually you could use it to catch jumps or landings, or at the end of certain setups and combos, of course, especially when you're doing falling up air. I think falling up air, and combined with Holy Water's Fire, is one of the most like prominent combo starters that we have. One of the main things that Belmont players have been labbing with up air is up throw into up air. I'll go more into up throw later on, of course, as it's one of the moves we'll be discussing. However, with up throw up air, it's not only necessarily true depending on the DI read, but also really good for a juggling situation or to bait out certain air dodges. So I think that also helps with the ranking I'm going to give up air. With that said, I'm gonna give this a B, and the main reason being because there are more blind spots compared to forward and back air because you can't do it in multiple directions, and it's just directly above the Belmonts. You know, it's kind of like a move that you can't really use as much as forward or back air in general, and I don't think it's an A tier only because a lot of things that would be true are all DI dependent and reading dependent. Like, you have to read your opponent's DI and stuff. So I think B is honestly a fair placement because it's not like average or 50-50 like dash attack, but it's still not like super amazing where I think it deserves to be an A if I'm being honest. Okay, so I mentioned some pretty decent things that up air can do. So what happens when you have a move that basically removes all the goodness of up air and just functionally does not really work how it should? You get up tilt. The only good thing about up tilt is the fact that it could catch landings. Other than that, it doesn't really do much. It doesn't really combo into itself. It can't even hit opponents unless they somehow move shift when on the ground, so it doesn't even do that. It's pretty much a really awful up tilt and probably one of the worst moves that the Belmonts have in terms of the rest of the kit if you compare them. I think that honestly, I don't think it deserves to be F tier like Jab does, but I do think this is a really bad move, so I think I'm going to put it in D tier. This is not like a 50-50 like dash attack. It's not good. It's not completely dog shit, but it's not a very good move. I think D tier is in a really appropriate spot for it. So yeah, up tilt pretty much sucks. However, one tilt that doesn't suck, and I don't think this is at all controversial to say, is forward tilt. This move is amazing. I honestly think that forward tilt is a really great contender for one of the best forward tilts in the game. This move is extremely quick, great for close range combat, which we really don't want to be doing, but if we're put in a situation, if we want to keep advantage, forward tilt. You could also retreat forward tilt, and it's just fucking amazing. It's really great in neutral. It's great at ledge, it's great for combos. It just does so much, and it's so versatile. The only downside is it does have a bit of a blind spot, and it doesn't really kill, although you're not really gonna be using forward tilt to kill. You're gonna be relegating that to forward smash, or maybe a stronger move that ends with a setup. You're honestly not going to be using forward tilt to kill that often, even though it can kill if you needed it to, depending on the situation you're in. A random fun fact about forward tilt is it actually has the same frame data as the NES Castlevania games. I don't know if that counts for Castlevania 4 or Symphony of the Night, but I just thought it'd be fun to share that as a little fun fact, as it's frame 12 to 13 where the hitbox is active. So yeah, I think this is a pretty obvious rank, but it's gotta go in A tier. This is not like the best of his moves, but it's so close. It just has just one or two shortcomings, but they're so minor that I think it just deserves to be A tier. Let's get the last tilt out of the way, down tilt. Down tilt was probably one of the more difficult moves to rank because honestly, it's just like dash attack in a way, but it's still better than dash attack. To start with pros, this is one of the few good get-off-me tools that the Belmonts have, so if you're in a close corner and use down tilt, chances are you're going to be able to get your advantage state back. Since the move is a two-part move, down tilt 1 is also really good for setting up combos from stuff like returning cross, or into tech chases for jab resets. Unfortunately, this move isn't as amazing as I wish it was due to the hitbox and hurtbox comparison, where the hurtbox is kind of exposed. Don't worry, we'll get there when we get there. But as for now, yeah, down tilt is still pretty damn decent. It's also really good for traps, such as using it in combination with Axe at ledge, or into, say, a mix-up where you could go for an offstage forward air to kill much earlier than you usually would. I was definitely on the fence if I want to put this on a B or a C, but after debating on it for a bit, I think this deserves a B tier, because it is better than dash attack. I don't mean to bring up dash attack too much, it's just that it's the best comparison for C ranks, in my opinion, where it's such a 50-50 move, while down tilt is bit more on the positive side than the negative compared to dash attack. You're going to see down tilt used a lot more compared to dash attack, so I think B tier is honestly fair for this move. You know what? Let's tackle the throws, starting with the most obvious of the best of the throws, forward throw. The forward throw is basically our kill throw, and honestly it's a godsend we have this, because when we're pressuring at ledge, the most basic, most like standard option that an opponent's probably going to do is panic and hold their shield. If you do that, run up and grab them, and just throw them at like 130, 140-ish, and you basically have a death, which is great. In terms of any sort of like setups, the only one that comes to mind in terms of like one that's mainly where to throw kills will be Axe if you time it right, but we'll get to Axe when we get to it. And as for like other combos, you can obviously use mid-air cross for it, and with that said, despite Belmont's grab being one of the worst in the game, in my opinion it's probably top 3 worst, I still think that the throw combos you get off of like mid-air cross is just great. It's a lot of good percentage, it's all true, if you time it right, it's overall the best throw we have. And this goes for all the throws when it comes to comboing into stuff like cross, but forward throw is the real kill throw, which is why I think it's the best of our throws. It's the one you're going to see used most of the time, if not for the second best throw, which we'll get into in one moment. As for the rank that I give forward throw, I honestly think it deserves to be in B tier. Some could maybe argue A if you're going off the argument of when you land it, which is a good argument. However, because again, Belmont's grab is easily one of the worst in the game, and this is coming from a game where a lot of the grabs feel like their animations in like hitbox, hurtbox, whatever you call it, the grab box, doesn't match. And I think, yeah, you could pressure it at ledge, but other than that, doing it where you want to get like, say, a combo in the mid-air cross, while yes, they are good and they have great sauce, unfortunately, it's something you don't want to be going for too often, because it kind of leaves you vulnerable when you're going for, say, mid-air cross grab combos, because it takes a bit of time and your opponents are most likely going to be faster than you in the air. So yeah, I think forward throw deserves to be at least a B, because it's still really good, it's a great kill option if we need it, but it's only really useful at ledge. And while yes, forward smash is more useful at ledge than other times, and I rank that at A, I think forward smash is used more often, and it's just more viable. So yeah, basically forward throw is B tier. However, funny enough, the opposite throw, back throw, is probably their worst throw, and honestly, I say this is outright D tier. Some would say that maybe it shouldn't be in D tier because it has the same launch rate as forward throw as far as I'm aware. However, the thing with back throw is that you're going to have to actively move and like take away your advantage just to do a back throw most of the time, unless you're doing like a cross, mid-air cross combo as I mentioned earlier. So yeah, back throw is basically pointless. If you do have a situation where you're going to do a back throw, I guess it's good in that regard, but out of all the throws, there's no reason you should almost ever be doing back throw compared to literally all other 3 throws. So yeah, this is like borderline useless. It's D tier. As for down throw, this one's a bit tricky because it's a more situational throw compared to forward throw, but if you do get certain reads off of it, it could actually be really good in your favor due to the fact that it doesn't launch necessarily too high. The most common read you want to go for is a neutral air dodge or any sort of landing option into like say a forward smash or a holy water. That could lead to kills or actual setups, which is really great as well. Down throw is really good for mix-ups, not necessarily as good as up throw in some ways, which we'll get into in a moment. But I still think down throw is pretty solid, so if I had to rank it, I think down throw belongs in... I'm gonna give it a C tier, honestly. Only because up throw leaves a lot more to baiting and stuff, which we'll get to, and it doesn't really kill, like, at all. Like, you be at, like, 230 and you still won't kill. It's ridiculous. But then again, it's not meant to be a down throw to kill with. It's meant to be one to either combo at early percents or just to get hard reads off of to actually kill with the hard read. As for up throw, this one takes a bit more skill to use correctly and more optimally during actual games. However, up throw I would say belongs in B tier along with forward throw. I already mentioned up throw, up air, of course, which is really hard to get true because it depends on reading DI and also how you buffer your jump into up air, of course. However, there are still things you could do off of it. You could up throw someone and then read neutral air dodges, you could read downward air dodges, you could read landing options. I think up throw overall is really great for juggling situations, just catching landings. And I think that's really important to do because in the case of certain characters that are really good in the air, if you do throw them up, but like they need to land or they want to go for some sort of aerial approach, you could read them and keep punishing them. And up throw is just a good way to really condition your opponent when in the middle of the stage rather than at ledge. Because of that, I would say up throw deserves to be a B tier, while down throw is down to C. But that's just my opinion. If you want to debate it, of course, like I said, feel free to say something in the comments or something. As for the next move I'm going to do, I'm not sure if this one's going to be an unpopular opinion. I feel like this move is used a lot in arcade despite being close range because it's great for combos, drag downs, and sometimes even edge guarding if you actually want to edge guard for whatever reason. But I think that neutral air actually is a pretty high tier move despite the flaws of it. Not sure if this is unpopular or not, but like, I think honestly, this is actually pretty high tier. The move by itself is like, you know, one of your generic like 360 multi-hit neutral airs similar to like Palutena or something. Unfortunately, it's not as good as Palutena, but it still has some decent uses, such as having drag down combos and also being able to combo into forward or back air reliably and be true at the same time. As for the downsides, that's where the hitbox and the flickering comes back. Yeah, just like dash attack, this move is kind of 50-50, but not necessarily as much because the move is just, I think, better programmed than dash attack, and you're going to be using it a lot more. So I don't want to say that neutral air is just average. I actually think, honestly, neutral air is actually pretty good. Not to mention that you could also use a rising neutral air out of shield or towards an opponent as an approach option, which I wouldn't recommend doing all the time, but it's still pretty decent, and I think it's even somewhat of a better approach option than dash attack because at least if you whiff neutral air, you can maybe jump back and then try retreating forward air or something. With dash attack, you can't really do that, and you just have to pray your opponent messes up rather than you get punished for messing up. I think because of all that, I would actually say that neutral air, I would dare say, is an A tier, not even B tier. I think this honestly deserves to be up there with forward tilt or forward smash as a move that we use so often. It's so great. I think that its downsides do suck. I do think it should be a constant hitbox, especially considering that Palutena's is constant, despite having better air mobility, being able to combo into itself more reliably. But neutral air still has a lot of use, so I think it deserves to be in A tier despite that. Aerial-wise, that only leaves us with down air, and yeah, down air was also a tough one to rank because this move is very inconsistent at times. Starting with positive stuff, the move itself is pretty good for not only combos and setups, but overall landing as well. Obviously not all the time because making it a linear landing would be too punishable, but it is one of our faster moves when it comes to mobility. The move spikes, but most of the time you're going for the sour spot as that's where all the combo and setup potential actually lies, even though there are of course setups that involve the spike as well. It's too risky to go for the spike, but you know, you always could if you want to, if you're stylish enough. But remember when I said something about hitbox and hurtbox comparisons with down tilt? Yeah, this is where I bring that back around because down air is by far the worst of it. This move gets stopped by a lot of juggling options. You could get juggled by Rob up air, Corrin's up air, basically almost any up air in the entire game, which means that when you're landing with this, you want to make sure you're not going to get into a hitbox or else you're going to be juggled all over again. Now obviously there are workarounds and other options you could do to hopefully land and not have to deal with opponents, such as using neutral air in like a Game & Watch situation with like the up air juggles. But that's super specific, and of course, every character makes it either harder or easier to get away from juggle situations. Down air, unfortunately, is not consistent enough to really do that. What really aggravates me about this move, if I have to complain for just one moment, is the fact that this is a kicking move, yet the foot is not where the hitbox is completely covered, which makes no sense. That's kind of like getting hit by a fist, but you don't feel pain until the elbow passes through your body. It's like, did the fist do nothing? But yeah, that's just me complaining at that point. While it was really hard to rank if I wanted to put this in a B or a C tier, because again, most of the hard choices were definitely ones that were more in the middle tiers, I think down air actually deserves to be a B tier. While the move itself is inconsistent, this move does a lot more good than it does bad. Again, that's why dash attack is down in C, because it does more bad necessarily if you're like trying to, you know, use it and you get punished. But down air, while yes, you could get punished for using this, does have its perks. I didn't even mention the fact that down air could be used as a somewhat recovery option. Obviously it's really risky and you have to be pretty big brain to know when you should use it, but it is something that works on nearly every projectile in the game. The spike is pretty damn strong though, so it's not like you're not rewarded for landing it, especially if you're in a risky area where using it means you're deaf. The sour spot is especially really good for combos and setups, as I mentioned, but it's also where you can bounce off opponents and possibly even save yourself from a punish because, again, you're bouncing similar to, say, Greninja, which is also really good, and most diving kick down airs don't do that. So yeah, I think, honestly, this deserves a B tier. You could definitely argue if you want to put it in C tier. Hell, if you really want, some of you might even argue A tier for some reason. But I think, personally, it's like in the middle ground of that, so I think it deserves to be B. Well then, it seems we finally have reached it. The Belmont's actual moveset. Okay, all jokes aside, the specials I wanted to save for last because that's obviously the most infamous part of the Belmont's moveset, so I think it was just appropriate to have it be the final few moves that I look at. But we're going to start with Up B as it's the only non-projectile special. So here's the thing, this move was also a little hard to rank only because I mean, let's be honest, we all know it's not a good recovery move, but the thing is, it's not really meant to be what we use usually for recovery. That's supposed to be the tether. The up B is more so your out of shield option as well as your finisher off of combos and setups, and in that regard, it's for the most part good. Most part. While it is true that this is our best out of shield option, this move, unfortunately, out of shield doesn't really kill consistently, which really sucks because you could verse really good matchups against Belmonts like Fox that are lightweights, and you'll up B out of shield them, and even at 160, 180, they won't die. And while yeah, you could argue that you shouldn't be staling and should be working on other moves, getting to land other moves on characters in matchups like Sonic, Fox, Pichu is a lot easier said than done. And I most likely have mentioned this briefly before during a live stream or something, but this move also has inconsistency issues. I could tell you're noticing a trend by now. Up B's problem is that it has a hitbox where it kind of falls out, and basically you have a chance of the opponent falling out with no fault of your own or the opponent, all because the hitbox is not constant for the entire move. For what reason that is, I could not tell you, but for some reason I just think that's one of the dumbest things about this move. A benefit to this move though is when you do use it to recover, it actually pokes at ledge, and most times you could get an easy get-up attack as a follow-up, meaning you get safety and no longer have to deal with disadvantage off stage. But of course, if you do miss, you're prone to being punishable. While many of you may be saying that you've seen my clips or other known Belmont players such as T3 Dom or something kill with up B at pretty decently mid-percents, that's of course honestly depending on the height you are when you do the up B, because most people will usually tend to DI it pretty damn well. Now obviously the move itself honestly can't be buffed to be just like the original uppercut, or as it was called in Symphony of the Night, the high jump, because that went like triple the height and also could have been done more than once in a row. That obviously would be way too busted. As for the move itself, ranking it, I honestly was kind of debating with myself for a bit on this one, but I think Up B honestly deserves to be C tier. The only thing stopping it from being B tier to me is those inconsistency issues like the fallout issue and the fact that the move itself doesn't kill consistently. If it did that, that'd be an easy B tier for me. But I think this deserves to be in C tier because I think moves that I put in B, such as say like forward throw, while not as often used, is more consistent and actually kills better in my opinion. Now that just leaves us with the sub-weapon cycle. Let's start with Axe, because that's probably the easiest one to discuss in terms of its uses and downsides. Axe is very strong, however also very slow. The thing is though, at a most basic level you're probably thinking, oh, it covers jump, that's good. But the thing is, you could cover jump with a lot of faster options, particularly your aerials such as forward air, back air, or up air. The main point of Axe, to me personally, is to condition your opponent and make them afraid. That way, the Axe is more of a baiting tool than the actual move you'll be hitting with. That's not to say that Axe, when landing, doesn't have uses. When it comes to offstage or at ledge, especially with deep recoveries or neutral getup, Axe is fucking phenomenal. I mean, everyone knows about the infamous shield break setup. That setup is just such a fucking godsend. But yeah, Axe is really good at conditioning more than anything else. Axe is unfortunately a little too slow for my liking, given that the move has little to no priority, to the point where uncharged Samus, B-neutral, or Link's wooden dinky little boomerang can stop the Axe, which is kind of stupid considering it's a giant metal hunk of like a blade, is a giant ass fucking sharp object, and here you got a wooden little projectile basically dealing it out in like one little interaction. Now of course there are ways to sort of like counteract this. If you do short hop Axe, and this goes for Holy Water, which we'll get to soon enough too, there's less landing lag, meaning there's follow-ups for it. That's how you get Axe F-Smash to work for a shield break. You have to short hop the Axe. If you don't, it's like a 95% chance you're not getting Axe to F-Smash anymore. Basically, yeah, there are workarounds, but unfortunately Axe itself is not perfect. Not that any move really is for the Belmonts, but Axe is definitely the worst of the 3 projectiles, but still really damn solid, especially when used correctly. As for its tier, I at first was going to go with a C, because its slowness, its lack of priority, it really feels like it deserves to be C, but at the same time, Axe, when landed, is so good, it's so great at traps, it's so great at conditioning, it's so great at pressure. I honestly think it deserves to borderline be a B. Now, honestly, I'm probably going to put it at a C, only because of the way I basically rank the other projectiles, which we'll get to in a moment. However, Axe can be a B if I really wanted to, but I'm thinking mostly a C. It's just like borderline B, like it's right there. It's like one foot's in B, but the other foot's in C, you know what I mean? Next up, Holy Water. Okay, so Holy Water is probably going to be one that some people might disagree with, but some might agree with. But I think, just to jump the gun a bit, this is a B tier move in my opinion. Now don't get me wrong, I know the infamy that is Holy Water, the take this after all. However, the thing about Holy Water is that it works so well, except when it doesn't. Yep, I'm bringing up that inconsistency trend. The main purpose of this move, similar to Forward Smash, is to kill at ledge, by catching neutral get up or roll. Thing is though, this is a multi-hit move that can be SDI'd pretty easily. So basically, a really skilled player might be able to get out of it before you even have any chance to even react to do a follow-up. The move itself is a good combo starter when it does immobilize your opponent though, don't get me wrong. This move basically can start your 0 to deaths and you just gotta stock in like 5 seconds. But the thing is, how many times you're going to be doing that compared to Holy Water not working or being used against you is a lot more than you might think. The move can be reflected like any other projectile, but the move can also be grabbed and thrown against you. And even then, you could shield the move, like say you're versing Belmont. If you shield the move and don't catch it back, that hitbox for the Holy Water is now going to hit us, even though you didn't bother to catch it, you just shielded it and did nothing else afterwards. The move itself has a lot of counterplay. Like Axe, you can short hop to, lessen the landing lag for follow-ups and stuff. And again, this move is really good when used right. At ledge, a lot of characters may struggle against this, either as something to cover their option, or something that ends up punishing them as a result. This move is really solid, and is probably, obviously, the most used projectile, second most I should say, in terms of the projectiles used for a reason. This move is just really fucking good. The reason for it being good is why I'm putting it in B tier over C tier, because I feel like that'd just be a really bad placement for Holy Water. I'm not going to say it's super amazing like forward tilt, but I'm not going to say it's like kinda like dash attack. I think this move is really solid. I just wish that it worked more. Don't make any mistake, I'm not asking for Holy Water to be busted like, say, Castlevania Circle of the Moon. That Holy Water lasts a fucking eternity. But I would like to see if this move could have been better during the patches that this game was having. Unfortunately, we know that's not the case. Ways I wish it worked more was probably to make it where the hitbox doesn't shrink over time really quickly. That's, I think, one of its biggest detriments, because even if you're immobilizing the opponent, I kind of wish the fire was constant throughout. You can also change like the length of the bottle throw depending if you're on a ledge or platform, of course, but the amount of times you're going to be doing that isn't nearly as often as if you're just going to short hop it at ledge, to be honest. So I don't really see that being a reason for it to be as kinda half and half as it is. And while you can abuse it at ledge multiple times in a row if you time it right, especially with the falling pixel, again, doing that in a regular match with fast reaction isn't as often as you think it's going to be, and I think because of it being more situational than anything else, I think that while yes, this is an extremely great ledge trapping tool, the move doesn't work correctly enough most of the time to really be able to emphasize it as much as I wish it did. Again, this might be a very unpopular opinion. Some people might say it may go higher, it may go lower. I think B is probably the best placement for Holy Water personally. And then there was one. Cross. Okay, so this is probably the most obvious ranking that I could probably give in this entire list. Like, anyone who plays Belmonts or has versed a Belmont knows exactly what ranking I'm giving this. This is a really great move, and despite its shortcomings, I think it's really obvious. This is an S tier, despite the flaws. While using cross regularly on its own is pretty if being honest, because it only really could combo into forward or back air, when you use it for its return due to being a boomerang item, that's where the move excels in pretty much everything you could possibly think of. This move is great for combos. This move is great for setups. This move is great for stage control. This move is great for ledge trapping. This move does it all. And it's honestly insane because it has such great range. You could change the length depending on your input. This move has a lot of variety, and the things you could get because of cross are almost limitless. While it is true that Cross can be hit back, and the move can't be used again until it disappears, especially if you drew it too long, those flaws are so minor to me that it doesn't really matter as much. This move can also be used off stage when going back to stage to actually help without needing to worry about edge guarding as much, because if you throw it and the opponent tries the edge guard, well, you just swat them out and now you're safe to go back to ledge. It's honestly such a fantastic move, and I think it's the most obvious pick for S rank in terms of the 3 projectiles and any other move that isn't forward or back air. If you combine, say, Battlefield or other stages with platforms into the mix, you basically have yourself a great way to use combos, whether it's a grounded cross or a mid-air cross, depending on what you want to use and what setups you want to go for with it, or combo extensions entirely. Some may be able to argue that it should be an A instead of an S, but I think it's pretty obvious at this point that this tier list is based off of not just how the moves perform in terms of like how they are on their own in combination with other moves and how they do against most of the cast, because to be fair, while this tier list doesn't really go in depth with that, with the exception of maybe like Forward Tilt's Blind Spot or something, I do want to point out that this is also based off my opinion of the move. That's why moves like Up Smash are ranked much higher than they should be. But yeah, I think Cross is an easy S tier. I don't think there'll be too much argument for it, but I could definitely see why there would be an argument for it being S tier. And that about does it. That's pretty much every Belmont move ranked. Keep in mind that this is my personal opinion combining with the performance of these moves as a whole. So obviously there's going to be some agreements and disagreements, but hopefully you guys enjoyed what was my first ever tier list type video. Hopefully I was able to be both entertaining and informative while discussing the moveset of the Belmonts. And yeah, maybe I'll do some more in the future. Maybe I could actually use this as an opportunity to do maybe other type of videos like top 10s, etc, etc. Obviously, if you guys have suggestions or anything, you could always put in the comments. That's, you know, common sense. I just like to enforce it a little bit to just mention, you know, just saying and all that. But with that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I appreciate the drop anyway. With that said, have a nice night, and take care.